All right, everyone, we're going to get started. Good morning and welcome. Thank you all for being here. Welcome to the community conversation and agenda. We've got some great panelists here. It's very exciting to be here this morning. Thank you to the church for donating this wonderful room to hold this event. And thank you all for being here. My name is Captain Will Reiber. I'm with the Aberdeen Police Department. I've been in law enforcement for about 26 years, and I'm also on the board of directors with the Harford Family House. So that gives me kind of a unique perspective in working in law enforcement and with homelessness and tying in with the groups like yourselves that represent and help those in need. So it's a privilege to be here. It's wonderful to see so many of you community leaders, partners, and advocates gathered today as we unite around one shared goal, and that's to eliminate homelessness in Harford County. You'll find the program and speaker lineup on your table. Take a look at them, because this is going to be a great, impactful morning for all of us. Now it's my honor to introduce two individuals whose leadership and dedication to guide this mission forward. Robin Tomechko, CEO and President of Harford Family House, and Sandy Osborne, Senior Vice President and Operations Officer with the Harford Bank and Chair of the Harford Family House Board of Directors. Please welcome and joining both Robin and Sandy.
Thank you, Will. And, got the wrong program. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, our Community and Conversation 2025, Facing New Realities, Homelessness Policy, and Partnership in Harford County. We're happy to have you here today as part of this critical discussion. For almost 10 years now, I've had the privilege of leading an amazing group of staff, board members, and volunteers in an effort to end homelessness right here in Harford County. For those who may not know us, Harford Family House is the largest provider of emergency shelter as well as transitional and supportive housing for families and individuals experiencing homelessness in our community. Since 1989, we've helped thousands of our neighbors move from crisis to stability, providing not only shelter, but the tools and resources needed to rebuild their lives. November is Homelessness Awareness Month, a time for us to pause, reflect, and take action. This event is one of the many ways we're raising awareness of the challenges our community faces, and more importantly, of the partnerships and people that make solutions possible. Nothing that we've accomplished over the years would have been possible if we were acting alone. This year's theme, Facing New Realities, speaks to the moment we're in. With funding cuts and changing regulations at every level of government, service providers are being asked to do more with less. Yet, through collaboration, innovation, and compassion, we can rise to these challenges together. Our goal today is simple: to foster honest conversation, build stronger connections, and spark ideas that lead to real impact for the individuals and families we all serve. Thank you for being part of this effort and for caring enough to be with us this morning. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Sandy Osborne, our chairman of the board, who will share a few words about today's program and what we hope to accomplish together. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Captain Reiber. And thank you all for taking the time out of your day to be here. It's inspiring to see so many people from across Harford County, community leaders, business professionals, service providers, and residents all gathered with a shared purpose to better understand homelessness and to work towards solutions that make a difference. At Harford Family House, we know no single organization can end homelessness alone. It takes a partnership between government agencies, nonprofits, and business community, and compassionate individuals who are willing to roll up their sleeves and work together. That spirit of collaboration is precisely what this event is about. Over the next few hours, you'll hear from a diverse panel of experts who will share insights into the regulatory and economic factors shaping homelessness in our county. You'll have the chance to discuss challenges and ideals at your tables, and we'll wrap up with an interactive Q&A session that invites your voices into the conversation. Our hope is that you leave here today not only with a better understanding of the issues, but also with a clearer sense of how you can be a part of the solution, whether it's through advocacy, volunteering, collaboration, or simply sharing what you've learned. On behalf of our board of directors and staff, thank you again for being here, for your commitment to helping every Harford County resident have a safe, stable place to call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin and Sandy. Next, we'll explore the current landscape of homelessness in Harford County, including trends, statistics, and the challenges posed by budget constraints and changing regulations. It's my pleasure to introduce, and what I would ask is for each of you to come up around and up the platform, and we'll take it from there. It's my pleasure to introduce Pam Smith, Homeless Liaison for Harford County Public Schools, Office of Title I. Adam Hyde, Director of Grants and Collaborations at Harford Community Action Agency and President of the Aberdeen City Council. Jennifer Greenleaf, Director of Homelessness Services for the Harford Family House. Pam, Adam, Jennifer, the floor is yours, and please.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for having us here today. It is a pleasure to partner on a regular basis with Harford Family House and the emergency shelter located in Belcamp. Harford Community Action Agency is currently the centralized intake for homeless services and general needs for housing, energy assistance, and nutritional assistance here in Harford County. I want to recognize Damon and Brian, who are also here today from the Community Action Agency. And those are your primary points of contact when you get to our agency for client intake. There's a whole host of things that are going on here in Harford County that we've seen over the last couple of years in terms of trends. We continue to see single adults or individuals with children as our women with children with our primary need for housing in Harford County. Our current by name list is over 250 names, and those are individuals that are seeking housing here in Harford County. We've also noticed an increased trend in individuals in not just our traditional hotspots in Aberdeen and Edgewood and throughout the southern portion of the county, but growth in both the Abingdon and Bel Air areas for our services. And so we work to expand our partnerships beyond the traditional spots of need in Harford County. In fact, I believe some of our biggest growth in need is in our rural areas here up in northern Harford County. We also see changes in the landscape as it comes to funding and priorities both at the national and at the state level. Here in Maryland, the governor has pushed for greater housing support and housing affordability here in Maryland. Last year, House Bill 538 was passed to incentivize development of higher density and more affordable housing incentives here in the state of Maryland. Aberdeen and Edgewood are both communities that are near some of the key areas that the legislation targeted. So those are areas around public rail. Both Aberdeen and Edgewood have stations, but also it's locations that are owned by the state and land that is owned by nonprofits as key areas for this type of development. Basically incentivizes the placement of quadplexes, duplexes, cluster homes, and higher intensity housing. So these are something that we are approaching not just from the city perspective, but also from a community action advocacy point in determining what is the best form of housing to meet the need here in Harford County, because as anyone who works in the field will tell you, there is never enough housing to meet that need here in the state. There are also incentives to incentivize redevelopment throughout the state. We are going to get housing targets sent to us from the Department of Housing and Community Development in January, both for Harford County and for all the jurisdictions within Harford County, so Aberdeen, Harvard, Grace, and Bel Air. We do face about 100,000 housing shortage across the state of Maryland as it stands today in terms of units. Additionally, on the federal level, we are experiencing changes in terms of eligibility for different programs, such as your legal status, as well as work requirements and households with children under the age of 14 versus households with children over the age of 14. And of course, over the last 3 months since the passing of House Bill 1, we have been trying to navigate those changes and be preparation for that going into effect in October. Of course, October 1 rolled around and we experienced a federal shutdown that has just now ended, so we are still waiting for all the funding and all the information to trickle down to us for the upcoming year and beyond. So we do see changes in the federal eligibility. We also see changes in federal desires through HUD. So traditionally it was centralized intake, it was permanent supportive housing, which are great sources of support for individuals, but we also are seeing a change from that towards rapid rehousing, which is basically getting people off the streets into housing, providing case management and support in the short term so that they can be sustained in the long term once they find, hopefully, sustainable employment to meet that need. We also are seeing changes in the individuals that we are seeing that are homeless. So traditionally it was more local individuals. We are seeing an increase in individuals that are being brought to the area for one way or another. They either had a local support here in Harford County, they've been put on a train sometimes to Aberdeen or Edgewood to get resources that are available in those areas. So it is a challenge sometimes navigating to find the familiar resources and networks for these individuals to get them sustained in a long-term posture. But we continue to try to evolve with the needs that are seen in Harford County, with the desires of particularly the state and federal regulations that come down. We are proud to work with not just Harford Family House, but about over 125 partners here in Harford County, including Harford County government as one of our funding sources to meet that need. I think those are some of our biggest trends and biggest changes going forward. Happy to have you take it over from there.
Good morning. My name is Pam Smith. I am the homeless liaison for Harford County Public Schools in the Office of Title I. Previously, a packet was placed on your table with information pertaining to the statistics that are currently for Harford County Public Schools and students who are experiencing homelessness. If you look in the inside of your packet, the definition for the McKinney-Vento Act is the one that governs the enrollment of students experiencing homelessness in Harford County Public Schools. It is a federal law that was enacted to support and protect the education of students who are experiencing homelessness. That definition is much different than what HUD's definition is in terms of identifying a child that is experiencing homelessness. It can be a child that is an unaccompanied youth, meaning that they are in our public schools without a parent, but the family was identified as experiencing homelessness, and the family may have sent the child to live with someone, or the child has left for various reasons at home for safety purposes. So this law protects their education. We have to immediately enroll the student into Harford County Public Schools. We also have communication with other jurisdictions because we do have students who come from other jurisdictions who were previously identified by that school district, that LEA, and come into our school district. If you look at the statistics over the last couple of years, the numbers have been rising. We have been seeing more students who are experiencing homelessness in our school district. This has been a growing situation that we are trying to combat and deal with and support the students. And the whole purpose of the McKinney-Vento Act is to protect the education of those students, to make sure that they have transportation to school, they can stay in a school of origin, or attend what we call a school of residency. The school of origin is the place where they became homeless. They have a legal right to stay in that jurisdiction in order to keep the continuity and consistency of their education and the supports that are in that school. If you look at our numbers also, Harford County Public Schools as well as other LEAs try their best to keep students in their school of origin. We have our largest population remaining in our school of origin. The statistics that I have here are from the registration beginning at the beginning of school up until September. Each month, what I do is receive the numbers from our local schools and our PPW offices in order to determine how many students we have and the increase over the period of the 9 months the school is in session. Just because school is out of session doesn't mean that we stop supporting these students. Our PPWs, as well as myself, are 12-month employees, so we also make sure that students are supported throughout the summer, whether it be in educational programs, extended school year, summer camps, and keeping them busy. Also, we have seen an increase in students in inhabitable locations, meaning that they are sleeping outside or in cars throughout the county. We also have seen a increase in the number of students who are in hotels as well. If you look also in the packet, I broke down where the majority of our students are coming from and where these evictions and different reasons why the students are experiencing homelessness. And our largest population is coming through in our Edgewood Joppa area, Aberdeen Havre de Grace area, Bel Air Fallston, and you can see the zip codes and the breakdown of the location of where these students became homeless throughout our county. Also, we have students throughout our shelters in the county, in Anna's House as well as Harford Family House, and we do have a relationship with them where they notify us when a student is coming into their program, and we make sure that we either keep them in the school that they're currently registered in, or if the parent desires to register in the school closest to where they are currently staying, either in Anna's House or Harford Family House. We support through a lot of different programs in our county. We have 9 Title I schools, as well as 17 community schools. And those are where our heavily populated student population who are experiencing homelessness. There are a lot of supports in those schools in terms of academics, as well as community supports in terms of providing whatever they need in order to be successful in school. Also, you see the breakdown of the disparity between the different races and in terms of our population of students who are experiencing homelessness as well. Currently, we have 333 students, but that number is rising each month. So looking at the trajectory, we anticipate that we will probably have well over 500 students, because last year we ended and closed out the school year with 558 students. My guess this year, based on the trends, is that we will probably reach 600, maybe a little over 600 this school year. Thank you.
Based on everything that we've heard this morning, I mean, you can tell that it's an issue that's worth talking about. And I feel like I am so grateful that all of you are here in this room to have this conversation with us. Harford Family House did facilitate this event, but I feel like we should have like a long table and everybody else, you know, should be a panelist, because we all have something to offer if it even just be our voice. So thank you for that. I just want to break it down really quick. I don't know if you know exactly what we do in the county, what Harford Family House does, but let me speak to it from a practical sense. So when we have 2 locations, one in Belcamp for individuals, adults, and then we have a location in Aberdeen, and we have scattered sites in Edgewood and one in Darlington for our residents. When you become a part of our program, we're not just offering you a roof over your head. And what we're doing is we're actually walking alongside you to help rebuild those things that you need to get in place to become a more stable, independent family, household, mom, dad, individual, what have you. How do we do that? Well, we have case management services, which is really just helping us navigate the social system, which is not an easy thing, as you all probably know. But we also partner with so many organizations and people who come on site to lend their expertise so that they can take that next step, that next good step. So for example, thank you, Nancy Hill. We partner with a federal credit union and other financial institutions that come and does counseling, budget counseling, financial counseling, that kind of a thing. Desiree, thank you for life coaching, one of a very, very popular group that gets together on Wednesdays. We partner with education with HCC, with employment resources, with job readiness programs, with University of Maryland Health, with the health department. I mean, so it's already been said, but we're all in this together, and we all have something to offer. So I really, really deeply am grateful that you all are here and what you have to offer. So I hope all of us together in collaboration is going to bring that hope and real change to our friends and neighbors who call Harford County home.
Thank you, Pam, Adam, and Jennifer, for providing that valuable insight and setting the stage. Next, we'll meet our expert panelists, each of whom brings valuable insight and experience to today's discussions. Each panelist will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves and share their unique perspective. We're going to begin with Sergeant Joe Sanchez, and if we could go in order down the line. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Sergeant Joe Sanchez. I'm with the Harford County Sheriff's Office. I currently run our community policing unit. I've been there since the end of 2022, and when I came, I didn't really know fully what I was getting into with this unit. I didn't realize how much it's so broad of everything that we do. And one of the things is with helping the homeless. Unfortunately, I am just a small little blip, and I have to rely on all of you experts as resources. This is something that was brand new to me, and I didn't realize how many resources that we did have in our community, but also how many resources that we still need, and we do need a lot more. So I'm here to lend a helping hand. I can answer any questions, if I can, because I am limited, educated on this topic. But what we do as road deputies when we do encounter the homeless is we try to become a resource. One of the last things that we don't want to do is when we encounter somebody that does need help or a family that does need help, we want to be able to help them. We want to be able to either connect them with either one of you all, connect them with a phone number, a hotel voucher, something to get them off the streets for at least that night. I know that we do need some long-term planning, and that's something that we are all here for. And I'm here to learn also. But this is something going forth. When listening to Jennifer speak, I actually already have an idea of a partnership that I think could be pretty good long-term wise that can help, and which we'll talk after. But thank you all. I've been with the agency for going about 19 and a half years. I kind of bounce around everywhere with the Harford County Sheriff's Office. You're going to learn today I am not a public speaker. This is probably my biggest fear, so thank you all for putting me on the spot. No, this is a great opportunity for me to learn, for you all to learn of what we can do and also what we can't do, because there is a lot of frustration that people come and they do call up 911 and they do need help, but there are some times we just don't have the answer and we can't fix or solve that problem right then and there, and that could be frustrating for you all and also frustrating for the people that we're dealing with also. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Dickerson. I'm the Grants Coordinator with the Harford County Department of Housing and Community Services. I wanted to introduce a little bit about where I'm coming from in our department, a little bit about what I do. I know a lot of the folks in this room, and I know some of them, we've got some updates on how our role goes for the county and our department as far as grant funding goes. A little bit about Housing and Community Services. The department was formed in 2023 as a combination of the Housing and Community Development Division as well as the Community Services Division. And those who've worked with community development, usually on the funding side, versus community services with partnerships, events, volunteering, things like that. It was a way to bring all of that together under one roof. So you're looking at everything from housing and homelessness to domestic violence services, to the recovery world, to people with disabilities, children, youth, and families. It's a whole area of services that's kind of come into one place, but one of the parts that I think the department wanted to focus on was taking some of those grant resources and getting them all in one area so they can be best targeted to where they're needed most. So from where I'm coming from, I started it as a grant specialist in 2022. I now work as grants coordinator for the Community Development Division. Essentially, we're working with not just our U.S. federal government funds from Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. We're working with state funds, and we work through the State Revitalization Program, but we also are working with some relatively newer state funds through the Office of Drug Control Policy from the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund, as well as the Opioid Restitution Fund. I'm really excited to be able to consolidate a lot of these opportunities and really target them where they've needed to. I think in the past, Harford County's really been able to take our kind of our pass-through, what we call pass-through funding from state and federal agencies, and really base it on, okay, we're going to take this program and we're going to put it towards these 4 providers or partners. And I think we're able to really start pulling from more than just a single program. So I'd be happy to talk about that a little bit more today. A little bit more about me for homeless side. I come from the homeless world before I started with the county, and this is very near and dear to my heart to see all the people who are involved and all the people who provide services day to day. So, and one more housekeeping thing. I have little kids and I'm always getting over a cold. So if you can't hear me correctly, I'm going to try and keep up for it and make sure you're not getting the cough out of it too. So I'm looking forward to speaking with everybody today.
Good morning. I'm Cora Grishka. I'm the Director of Department of Social Services. I've been with the Department of Social Services overall on the statewide level for 31 years. I started off as a case manager in Baltimore County, went down to our central office to work for SNAP. Then I transferred to Harford County in 2009, I believe, as the Assistant Director of Family Investment, and I've been the director for about 3 years. And I'm happy to be here today. We're not a direct provider of homeless services. What we basically do is offer the stability programs to help people avoid homelessness. And with some up-and-coming policy changes that occur with us, I'm interested to brainstorm with all of you today to figure out how we make them work in Harford County.
All right, thank you. My name is Brittany Mullins. I am here with Keypoint Health Services. My current position is the director of the adult rehab programs for Harford and Cecil County. Keypoint itself as an agency was started here in Harford County about 40 years ago. And I, myself, have been at Keypoint since 2009. So I have had a unique view providing mental health services within our agency and dealing with many of the issues that everyone today has shared. Keypoint is pretty diversified. We offer outpatient mental health services, so that would be therapy, psychiatry, medication management, as well as psychiatric rehabilitation programs that kind of span the needs. So we have 21 licensed residential beds through the Office of Mental Health, and we also offer some community living options with reduced rent. We know all too well the connection between mental health and homelessness, and I'm excited to be here today to share in this goal.
Good morning. My name is, I think I got your cough, Pat.
Oh, we should have.
Oh, yeah, let's switch that.
We need extra mics.
You can put that one back.
Now I'll infect this one. Is it on? Yeah? Okay, here we go. Good morning. My name is Patty Sterling. I'm the Executive Director of the Drescher Foundation. I came to the Drescher Foundation with a pretty unique perspective, having served in the nonprofit community for over 20 years. And I've served on both sides of the funding table. I started off in Catholic Charities down in Baltimore, raising funds for them and all 156 programs that they offered throughout the state. I then moved on to the France Merrick Foundation, which is one of the largest private family foundations in the state. And we did a lot of really great work within Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and a little bit up here in Harford County. The challenge is that I live in Bel Air. And I started to feel a little bit disconnected with the work that I was doing. And I wanted to do something in my hometown that really helped improve the quality of life. So, big, huge change. I came to the town of Bel Air, and I was their first ever grants coordinator, where I sought federal and state and private funding to improve the town of Bel Air. And it was really awesome, but something better came along, and that's the Drescher Foundation. I'm not sure how much you guys know about them, but they were established back in 1989 by Jim and Virginia Drescher, and they had a strong commitment to Harford County, And their goal was clear. They wanted to improve the quality of life for all residents within Harford County. And we do this by supporting nonprofit organizations that provide vital services, programming, hope, and opportunity. So here we are 36 years later. Jim and Virginia no longer make the decisions. They're no longer with us. But their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren sit around the funding table. Our priority funding areas include programming that affects vital health, education, human services, and civic and cultural activities. Many of the Dreschers live and work in Harford County. They're your neighbors, and they're active members of the community, and I'm thrilled to be here on their behalf.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Suzanne Korf. I'm currently the Senior Policy Officer on the Homeless Solutions Division team at the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. I've been with the state DHCD since 2018 when I joined as a mid-career intern after working for Catholic Relief Services, probably the same building as you, because I also felt called to focus closer to home. I think I was on a global child welfare program at that time and looked at what was happening in our own country and thought I can do that and not travel. When I joined the Division of Homeless Solutions, we were a smaller community solutions team, and we just had a poverty solutions grant team, which administered some funding to community action agencies and mortgage mitigation and some other programs, and our homeless solutions grant team, and then a small policy arm, one position that did the ICH and the annual report on homelessness and some greater policy coordination. Since that time, our division has been elevated from a community solutions team to its own division with an assistant secretary, Danielle Meister. We established the Balance of State COC, which moved from 1 staff to 6 staff, supporting the work in Harford County LHC, or Local Homeless Coalition, and many of our smaller counties throughout Maryland. We now also have an Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs, which is meant to uplift renters' rights in Maryland through the Renters' Rights Stabilization Act in 2024. And they publish a tenant bill of rights and then also provide technical support to tenants and landlords to make sure that they're in compliance and that we're identifying where additional technical assistance is needed to make sure that people understand what renters' rights are in Maryland and where the issues are. And then we have a much larger policy team right now. We have a Youth Homeless Systems Improvement Initiative. I'm wearing green. Today is Wear Green Day for Youth Homelessness Month. This honors the tradition of putting a green light up in your house so that youth can know it's a safe place to stay. We continue to coordinate the Interagency Council on Homelessness. We now have a statewide data warehouse which collects data from all 10 Maryland COCs and is looking at doing a data match with MD CRISP to understand the cost of homelessness in our healthcare system and emergency departments in our state. We do intensive system improvement in partnership with Built for Zero, and then we're implementing the state's permanent supportive housing plan. So I know Adam mentioned the expansion of affordable housing and setting housing targets with counties. We're also working on LIHTC incentives braided with the Medicaid ACES waiver to support permanent housing development in our communities. So a much expanded mission, and we really, really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lieutenant Thaddeus Tomlinson. I'm with the Aberdeen Police Department. I've been in law enforcement since 2006, and I've been, for the past 14 years, I've been with the Aberdeen Police Department. Myself and Captain Ryber and some other folks in Aberdeen have partnered with Harford Family House for many years and many of their different initiatives. And we've also just been a part of the day-to-day things that just happen in the community with them. We did win home runs for the homeless event at one point. I'm just going to throw Captain out there. We did. If you lost, I'm sorry, but we won. And we've, as an agency, we've kind of been on the front lines of homelessness for many years, just like Sergeant Sanchez with the Sheriff's Office. When we come across folks that are encountering homelessness, there's usually a variety of issues that are going on, and there's never a quick fix. But as an agency, we've kind of committed ourselves to tackling that problem on a slightly different level. We've statistically tried to track some of the individuals that we come across, where they're coming from, or brought them to Aberdeen, and what kind of resources are even available for those people. So I'm hoping that at the end of today, we'll have an opportunity to just kind of collaborate and talk about some of the things that we're encountering as challenges and also the things that we're trying to do. And maybe there'll be side conversations that can happen at the end of this where we can just kind of talk together about some solutions.
All right, let's give a big round of applause for our panelists. and all the information that they've shared with us. So this is going to bring us to the point where we're going to have a moderated discussion. And I think you're going to learn a lot more about what's behind each one of their organizations and what they individually do. So this first question is to Sergeant Joe Sanchez. He's the Community Policing Liaison with the Harford County Sheriff's Office. Can you share how the Sheriff's Office partners with county agencies or nonprofits to ensure that encounters with people experiencing homelessness lead to help and support rather than repeated calls for crisis?
Yeah, so obviously we're coming up on one of the more dangerous times right now with the winter freeze plan coming up. And that's one of the things that we work with Brian Wainwright from the Harford County, I'm going to say it wrong, Community Action Agency. And that's a resource sharing. He gives me this form that has all these other resources that I'm able to provide to our patrol deputies. Especially during the time of the winter, this is a very dangerous time. So we want to make sure our deputies have all these phone numbers, have all of the locations that we can bring people to. It's unfortunate that we don't have a 24/7 shelter during these times, but there are other ways that we can get them into safe spots. And then even if at that time, if a phone number doesn't work or goes unanswered, what we do is sometimes we just bring the families into the precinct. They get to sit there for at least a night or two, and then that's when we try to make contact again. We also partner up with the United Way. That's a huge event that they run up in Edgewood at the Epic Center. That's where we also get other resources, and that event's great for getting resources with churches. So there are churches that will end up opening up their doors to an X amount of people, and that stuff for the most part, unless they come and tell us, we don't know about that. The deputies out on the road aren't going to know that. So that's where we really try to make our rounds and really try to get in contact with them. Another thing that we provide to our deputies is the shelter listings on the website. Some of these places, they are still active, some of them aren't, but it is a place for them to start. It is a place to get in contact with people. SARC is a huge one, especially if it is domestic violence related. Again, the Harford Family House does a phenomenal job in there. That's one of our best resources. The Harford Crisis Center, a lot of them are dealing with mental health issues, and that is a resource for us. We used to have a CIT coordinator who's now gone, but we just hired another one that's with, his name's Jamie Auer. He's a retired deputy with Harford County Sheriff's Office. He's someone that we lean on a lot if we do need any other resources. And also, with the PDs, Aberdeen PD has been dealing with this for many years. Aberdeen and Bel Air PD have probably one of the bigger homeless populations within their townships. And that's something that we can just lean on them because they're going to know more sometimes. They're going to have the resources. They're going to know what shelters are available, what we can and what we can't do. Throughout Harford County, they're kind of spread out throughout. I'm dealing with an encampment right now that's on in the Bell Camp area, and a lot of the people there and it's unfortunate, but they're causing issues in the one shopping center. A lot of them were in shelters, but they violated the rules and they violated the laws, so they ended up getting kicked out, but they stayed. So that's something that we're working with the state for in trying to get them placement and in trying to get certain areas cleaned up. But we also don't want to kind of put them out and then you just move somewhere else. It has to be a long term. We can do stuff that's short term, which is okay, but it's always going to circle back around. Another new shelter that we've been kind of working with a little bit, and they are a great source, is the Welcome One shelter that is in Belcamp. I wish I could remember the director's name. Super nice guy. He is a wealth of knowledge. Anytime I've needed something, I just give him a call, and he identifies people for me. He lets me know, hey, there's nothing that we can do here, but maybe, Baltimore City has this. We've had deputies. I remember when I worked the road, if I came across a homeless person, family, and if I had no shelter for them, if there was no hotel vouchers, we would drive them into Baltimore City to at least get them in a shelter, for that night. But the goal is that long-term kind of fix. Trying to think if I left anything out. Oh, and with the local churches, I'm still trying to find, and if anyone here has a system with it, the churches do a lot for the homeless. And if we don't know about it, it's hard to refer because there's so many churches in the county. And it could be one of the larger ones and one of the smaller ones do stuff. It's that stuff that I think we need to create a resource where maybe they can kind of reach out and say, hey, this is what I'm providing, whether it's meals, food, clothing, a temporary stay. That's stuff that I think in sharing will be really helpful to us, for us deputies working the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Sanchez, for sharing those valuable insights. And next question goes to Lieutenant Thaddeus Tomlinson. He's the day shift patrol commander for the Aberdeen Police Department. As a municipal department serving the city of Aberdeen, what challenges does your team encounter when responding to situations involving individuals experiencing homelessness within the city limits? And I would also encourage you to talk about our LEAD program and how we offer a hand up as opposed to just a handout.
Yes, sir. On the surface, when we come in contact with folks who are experiencing homelessness, it's never just one difficult circumstance that these folks are facing. Many times they're navigating a combination of challenges between behavioral health diagnoses, active addiction, and financial strain, and even just some family instability. And additionally, we in the city of Aberdeen, we have a close proximity to an Amtrak station, and we also have close proximity to many bus stops. And unfortunately, when folks are just traveling to and from, Aberdeen also has a lot of resources. So there are a lot of things in Aberdeen that are giving resources to people in need. So what happens is sometimes when you find these public transportation hubs through Amtrak or the MARC train stations and or the bus shelters, folks will just land in Aberdeen. And just like we're all here in community today under one cause, when you come across many individuals who have shared life experiences, they create their own communities. So then it's not just one or two people, it's usually a connection of like a network of people. And a lot of times when we get involved with those situations, it's generally because they are symptomatic of one of the issues that we've already kind of decided or discussed here, where we have people having erratic behavior, visible evidence of substance abuse with drugs or alcohol, and a lot of times with trespassing. And one of the most significant issues that we face when we respond to these calls is that there's simply just nowhere for these folks to go. We can move them from one property to another, and ultimately we end up just having this monitoring of a migration of people. And we can connect them to resources, which I'm going to get into next. But at the same time, we still kind of find ourselves in this repeated pattern of how we try to help them. One of the things that we do is the Aberdeen Police Department has partnered with Upper Chesapeake Health, and we perform what's called the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, or the LEAD program. And what we do is when we come across folks who have committed low-level, nonviolent offenses, we do an intake with them on the street, and we try to connect them with a community advocate through Upper Chesapeake Health that actually connects them with resources that it's kind of appropriate to what they're going on. A lot of times, this has led to some really significant and meaningful help that has put people in connection with the right things. However, there's also a lot of times where we offer assistance, and unfortunately, it does get rejected for one reason or another. And there's never really one single reason as to why someone would reject assistance, other than it just doesn't simply fit what they have going on in their life at that particular moment. So that is a factor that we come across. To illustrate our challenge, I'm going to use a little bit of an illustration here. If you can consider the Aberdeen Police Department's mission and its focus, if we were a tool, we would kind of be the equivalent of a hammer. But what happens is homelessness is not a nail. And homelessness, as we've all discussed here, is multi-layered, multi-tiered, where everyone has to kind of participate to go into this together. We can't attack every single problem through enforcement, and we are aware of that. And that's kind of leads to our partnership with that LEAD program. And it does require a system in place of specialized tools to solve that problem. So even when we connect individuals to resources, not everyone qualifies for housing, and not everyone receives sustained support. And that is just a reality of everyone having their own individual circumstances. And unfortunately, cycles of hopelessness just repeat. So what we see sometimes is if we encounter someone and we can do an intake with a LEAD referral and we can offer them resources, and if LEAD doesn't solve the problem, we go to a different resource or outreach program that's out there. Sometimes people still just fall through the cracks, and unfortunately people are still homeless. So as far as an agency, these are things that we come across on a regular basis, and we're doing the best we can on that front line to kind of step in the gap for folks and be that we're walking a fine line of being a guardian to our community and making sure that everyone's protected, but we also have a responsibility to the individual that's in a vulnerable situation. So we are clear as mud, but we are tackling the problem as best we can.
Thank you, Lieutenant Tomlinson. The next question goes to Brittany Mullins, Director of Rehabilitation Services at Key Point Health. Partnership is central to this discussion. How does KeyPoint collaborate with organizations like the Harford Family House and other community partners to provide holistic care addressing both mental health and housing needs?
Now it's on. Okay. All right. Great. Yeah, partnership really is at the heart of what we do at KeyPoint. In our multiple programs, our mental health, outpatient mental health programs, as well as our psychiatric rehabilitation programs, our child PRP, our school-based programs, it's really undeniable that mental health and housing are deeply connected. You cannot focus on recovery or rehabilitation without a safe place to live and without those feelings of safety. And that's why we work close with community partners like the Harford Family House, like the Office on Mental Health, and other community and faith-based resources. We rely and lean on one another to help someone to conquer homelessness, and then to build those skills necessary to maintain that housing, possibly, that we were able to help to secure and maintain in the future. If someone presents for mental health services and they are identifying a need for homeless services as well, therapists are able to make referrals to our PRPs, to our residential programs, and those are truly our direct care staff, are the boots on the ground helping to connect those individuals with those resources. We do have 21 licensed residential beds and additional community housing options available within our agency, and those individuals the program is designed to graduate and develop with the individual, to meet them where they are, develop those skills, and really set them up for a future of housing stability, mental health stability, and helping them to build those community resources and structure for themselves from the ground up. We, just to kind of bounce off of some of the CIT mention, KeyPoint annually hosts the CIT class with Jamie Auer now at the PRP. So we welcome 20 to 30 officers and deputies this year, I believe, into our PRP. They asked questions of our day program clients. The day program clients were welcome to ask questions as well. So it's those day-to-day relationships that we are able to help foster both within our consumers, within our staff, and connecting to those agencies. Ultimately, I think that the more that we all align our efforts, the easier it will be for clients to get what they need without repeating their story, without falling through cracks. That warm handoff that we talk about is just that much easier with us coming together today, and then also hopefully taking this information and this inspiration back to our direct care staff and encouraging those relationships to bloom and blossom wholeheartedly. Our goal really is to create a seamless experience for clients where mental health and housing work together to promote long-term recovery and stability. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. The next question is for Susan Korf, Senior Policy Officer, Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. Partnership is central to today's conversation. How does DHCD collaborate with counties, nonprofits, and private partners to strengthen housing opportunities across Maryland?
Is that better? Okay, great. I love this question because none of the work happens without all the people in the room. I see you, Brian Wainwright, Jen. I see the folks at SARC and the folks at just across the service provider networks that we have here in Maryland. You're the folks that make sure that people experiencing homelessness are connected with the resources that they need. And our role is to support you through funding and technical assistance. So I really do see you as the primary focus of our work and the network that we most need to be supporting. Partnership has become core to everything we do at DCD. Under our leadership, we do county day trips. I think the leadership team, Secretary Day, and some of the other Office of the Secretary folks, as well as members of our team, have gone out and done 1 to 2 day visits in every county in Maryland, going out each month to sit with county executives, folks in the private sector, local advocates, business leaders, community members, and nonprofit partners to understand what your needs and priorities are, and also to celebrate the work that you're doing on the ground. And we visited Harford County in July of last year, and that included tours of the Epicenter in Edgewood, the Berrien Village Apartments, the Havre de Grace Main Street, among other initiatives. On the Homeless Solutions team, we meet monthly with our continuums of care and local homeless coalition partners, and that's to foster engagement around both state priorities and COC and local provider priorities so that we can understand better what your needs are and make sure we all have the information we need to work effectively. And then I think the most exciting example of partnership is the work that we've done under the Moore Miller administration's leadership on the permanent supportive housing expansion strategy. The Moore Miller administration released the first state plan in over a decade and set 2 major metrics for reducing homelessness overall and ending chronic homelessness by 2035. And we recognize the challenges inherent in that, especially with everything happening this year. But I also want to celebrate what that partnership has achieved. It takes 3 types of to increase permanent housing. Okay, sorry about that. So we've done an analysis, and to end chronic homelessness, we need to be creating a minimum of 500 to 600 units annually over the next 10 years. And we need investments in both available units, operating costs such as rental assistance, and supportive services to make that impactful. And we have partnered with our Community Development Administration, which administers our LIHTC awards, sat at the table with property developers and others on the qualified allocation plan, and this year the 2025 LIHTC awards yielded 25 new permanent supportive housing set-asides and 96 new homeless set-aside units at or below 30% AMI. And the service and operating costs will be at least partially covered by an expanded partnership with the Maryland Medicaid team. We have state investment in expanding the Assistance and Community Integration Services, or the ACES Medicaid waiver, which will help to cover the supportive services costs and the rental assistance costs. And that was through interagency partnership in the Housing Services Partnership Accelerator, a TA opportunity under HUD that helped us figure that out and build that plan. And hopefully that's something we can continue to grow and expand. I know it's going to be challenging with some of the federal things that are happening, but we have continued to invest in this work and made that a priority in our budget requests each year.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. Next up, we have Patrick Dickerson, Grants Coordinator, Department of Housing and Community Services. Your department plays a crucial role in creating affordable housing opportunities for Harford County residents. What are some of the current challenges and successes in expanding access to affordable housing?
Thank you for the question. I want to start by saying, or should say asking, how many people in here think that affordable housing is a priority in our county? Okay, I always like to see. Sometimes you get a lot, sometimes you get a little. It's always a touchy subject, and so I always want to make sure we're able to address where everybody's coming from. So I can tell you from our department, we do leverage our federal, what's called community planning and development funds. Harford County is what's called an entitlement jurisdiction under the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So we receive formula-based grants through the Community Development Block Grant Program, as well as the Home Investment Partnership Program. Each of these grants is determined based on the number of what HUD considers to be low to moderate income households living in our county, and they can be assigned to really for CDBG, a broad range of community investment projects. Home Investment Partnership, on the other hand, really is focused on housing and affordable housing. So I can share some of our successes and then also really get into some of the challenges, as I'm sure all of you know, have come to us and continue to come on the horizon. So using these funding opportunities, we revamped our down payment assistance program for first-time home buyers. Started back up in 2023. If you were aware of what was the Hometown Heroes program, we expanded that back out to the general public for people who were struggling or trying to get their first home. In the past 2 years, there have been at least 30 households who've taken advantage of this and had down payment assistance to buy their first home that's affordable. Each year, we work with many of the providers in here for tenant-based rental assistance. At least over the last 2 years, there have been 35 households that have been assisted. Basically, that provides 1 year of rent subsidies to move people primarily targeted coming from homelessness so they could take that next step as kind of a transitional housing situation that'll carry through, paired up with case management. And we also fund, I know we've got folks from Habitat here, we'll fund the critical ramp and repair program, as well as the single family home buyer program, which provides usually making about 3 to 4 houses a year. I can tell you that what we're working with for out of the home investment partnership really focuses on these housing aspects. We're not working with much. Harford County gets anywhere between from $350,000 to $500,000 each year. And when we're using that, we really have to look closely on what priorities are being set for affordable housing. As those who've worked with affordable housing development before, sometimes that comes out as a drop in the bucket. We have used home investment partnerships for, as Suzanne was talking about, for light tech investment. So usually it's there as a gap financing. Some of the affordable housing developments that came up in the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen Rock Spring, Homes at Fountain Green, and recently Marion Village Senior Apartments utilized home investment partnership funds. Which is Marion Village alone for senior apartments had 60 units added on top of that with some of the gap funding we put in there. And for anyone looking, if we've always asked if people see affordable housing as a priority, our department does offer free housing counseling. Whether that's whether you're in the landlord-tenant relationship or whether you're looking to buy, whether you're looking to see what some of those other options are, that service is available. So there's a lot that we've been able to cover over the years, but I will say our biggest challenge is, I'm sure everyone else has seen, that the demand goes up and the funding does not. What we experienced in the last year and a half, our home funding was cut in fiscal year 2025 by 27%, and then it came back up again by 6% this past year. In CDBG was cut in FY25 by 7%, and it went back up by 4% in 2026. The Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is operated through our department as well, uses HUD dollars to provide Section 8 housing choice vouchers for low-income residents of Harford County. Federal government's working on cutting parts of that back too. A lot of this is really trying to leverage what we have and use what resources are available to hold the line, I think, is the first priority here, and then come up with some creative solutions to move ahead when it seems like we really have to adapt to the changing environment for affordable housing. So with those challenges, I kind of looked at short-term solution. We're leveraging everything that we can to hold the line of what we've been doing, which I know is kind of hard to see, to say, okay, there's a lot more, and there's a lot more that could be done, but with the funding that you have, you want to make sure that you're not losing what you're already doing. And then more long-term solutions, I know are big ticket items in affordable housing. You can look at housing development, rental assistance, anything that comes through for a really sustainable part of that. As I said before, doing gap financing for LIHTC as a developer comes who has a housing project. Obviously, our department, if a developer comes to seek for that gap financing, we're willing to work with them, kind of act as a liaison as well for our planning and zoning, for license and permits, be a part of that process as that's getting put together. But it still is just a small piece of the puzzle. So really, we've got some more options from state funding. We're searching for some other federal funding, and then also some outside to kind of fill in some of these gaps as this moves, as we see more things kind of it's kind of a little, the boat's rocking, right? So what we're trying to do right now is look at some of those smaller, really effective projects that are working specifically with Harford County residents. And that's obviously where we can. Not all funding says that we can support just Harford County residents, but where we can, to see what's most effective. Because we're finding that as instead of putting the small amount that we have towards something large that'll go over in a couple years, finding some of those targeted areas, whether it's a housing case management program or whether it's something, a new aspect of rental assistance that's going to target a specific group of people. That's where we're finding a lot of that funding is most effective for affordable housing with what we have at the moment. I can say coming up for, and aside from all of our traditional challenges, whether that's zoning, community buy-in, leveraging other fundings, et cetera, we are doing another year of what's called the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund. If you've seen public comment out for that right now, there is a portion of that that is eligible for housing and homeless services, and that is something our department's considering. I would encourage everybody, if you look up through Harford County Housing and Community Services, if you look up the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund, or CRRF, we do have a survey out right now, which is basically asking everyone to put in where do we think this funding is going to be most effective for the people who basically historically disaffected communities. And if you think housing and homelessness prevention is an important category, please share. That really helps inform our decisions, as well as the review committee that looks through to it. January is typically for any kind of nonprofit grants. We have an application open. This year is going to be specifically for a broad umbrella housing grant. So if you're one of an existing grantee, that's something to look out for. If you have an idea for a housing program that could potentially fit with the funding sources we already work with, or with CRF, that's a good time to check that out. So wanted to keep everybody informed. So yeah, it's some of the same successes and challenges that I know you all are encountering, and we're really trying to find those niche areas where we can make the most difference.
Thank you, Patrick, and it looks like you're sharing some information that may be new for some of the folks in the room today. Next, Patty Sterling, Executive Director of the Drescher Foundation. Partnership is a key theme of today's discussion. How does the Drescher Foundation view its role as a partner, not just a funder, in creating lasting change for family experiencing homelessness here in Harford County?
Partnership, right, is the key word today. And I got to tell you, partnership is not always easy, right? We also use the word collaboration. And in order to really respond to partnership, you really have to build a certain level of trust and transparency. So I want to applaud all of the panel members up here that have talked and have referred to other organizations, right? We can't all do it by ourselves. And the Drescher Foundation feels very strongly that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I have to give you some statistics here real quick. We're the sole staffed foundation in Harford County, and the nonprofit sector has been growing throughout the country at about 5% per year since 2013. So for context, back in 1940, there was one nonprofit serving about 2,600 people. In 1970, one nonprofit was serving about 848 people. And today, there's one nonprofit per 100 people in the US. Isn't that amazing? And what's challenging about this is that the resources and support have not kept pace. If you adjust for inflation, government grants, philanthropy, private donations, it has remained flat. So there is a heavy load out there. And there's no way that any one of those areas can do it alone. So several years ago, the Drescher Foundation we made a deliberate decision to go beyond our grant dollars. We wanted to help build nonprofit capacity, because you know what? Harford County would not be the same without its nonprofit partners and government programs and all the other programs, but honestly, we would not be the same. So our goal was to bring all of direct service providers in all nonprofit direct service providers together into a nonprofit summit. And our goal was pretty simple: to unite and amplify the impact of the nonprofit community. And it's been pretty great. The summit has provided an opportunity for nonprofit directors to work together, collaborate, and share resources. And we've learned a couple of things. We learned, number one, that nonprofit leaders shoulder a tremendous responsibility, from juggling the needs of those they serve, to working with board members, to building sustainable operations. It's a lot. But nonprofits want and they need a strong network of support. And I'm sure many of you're here today because of that. But our nonprofit leaders also asked us, and we delivered, on an online platform for them to communicate directly with each other. It's called The Hive. And they can go online, share information and resources, find events, and ultimately collaborate with each other to better serve the clients that they serve. Earlier this year, nonprofits that received funding from Opioid Restitution Fund needed a space to be able to talk to each other about what they were doing, and we provided that space on our online platform. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was a food access meeting. Same thing, with things changing by the day, by the hour, by the minute. We are stepping up to provide an online platform where people can post the most up-to-date things that are happening, and the service providers can see what's happening, tap into resources, and share resources as well. So those are some of the things that we're doing. We ultimately see our online platform, The Hive, into growing to include board members and community members. Right now, we're starting small. It's not really that small, but we're starting with our nonprofits to help them do the work that they do even better.
All right, thank you, Patty. Next, Cora Grishkot, Director of Harford County Department of Social Services. What programs or services offered by DSS are making the most significant difference in helping families and individuals achieve stability and avoid homelessness?
Thank you for the question. One of the most things we're working on right now is to bring our programs out into the local community. So we're working with partners such as Harford County Community College, Catholic Charities, Up and Coming, Harford County Public Library, and Harford County Public Schools, so customers no longer have to come to our office to apply. They can go online and apply, or they can go out to one of these providers, and we will have staff there on a regular scheduled basis to offer our services, application, read-outs, questions out within the community so they don't have to come to our office. Just want to spell out a couple of the programs we have, most of which you've already heard of, but hopefully you'll leave here today, at least I know you'll leave here today learning at least a couple things that you're like, hey, I never knew they did that. And then I'm going to put forth a challenge of some recent policy changes that came into play that directly relate to the homeless, and see if we can collaborate today to figure out how we're going to work with them within Harford County. Directly related to housing, we have the emergency assistance to families and children and the emergency assistance funds, which can help our clients with things such as eviction notices, turn-off notices, security deposits, and they're a maximum grant of $500 every 2 years, and they have to be matched with the rest of the funds in order to stay the eviction, to do the security deposit, or to alleviate the turn-off notice. We have a couple of cash assistance programs. We have the temporary disability to assistance program is for adults that are not able to work, that are temporarily disabled. We have the temporary cash assistance program is cash assistance to families with children. And along with the cash grant, there's a lot of other things that go with that. We offer workforce training. We can act as an intermediary with Vehicles for Change. And what I bet you didn't know is we offer certification programs. So if one of our temporary cash assistance clients wants to go to school to be a CNA, a cosmetologist, forklift operator, almost anything, we can fully fund that program. We can get them there. We can offer the tools, the supplies they need. And we've had that program for a couple of years now, and so far, we have had no takers. So I'm putting that out there to all of you to help us with that. We really want to offer that program, but for so far, I don't know if we're marketing wrong, but I'm going to put it out there in a group of people today that I'm confident are going to be able to help us get some takers of that program. It's just certification programs, and it's only for temporary cash assistance customers. Is you go in there, you tell them you want to do it. If they call me, if they say, oh, we don't have that, yes, we do. And we will help them. The only thing we can fund is we can't fund college degrees. I'm going to say we have that program as of now. We are expecting about a 20% cut in our grant for next year, so it might be more limited next year. But as of right now, please help me spend that money. I don't want to let it go to waste. The last program I want to talk about is our SNAP program, which, thank goodness, people will be getting their full grants this year. It's been a rough couple weeks. With that, able-bodied adults, which are customers that are able to work and do not have dependents under the age of 14, are required to do a work requirement of up to 20, well, not up to, 20 hours per week. And prior to October 1st, homeless were exempt from that policy. They are no longer exempt. So our homeless population that are between the ages of 18 and 64, who are able to work and do not have dependents on the age of 14, are now mandated to comply with our work requirements. So what that can mean is they can be employed for 20 hours a week, they can bring in an approved work activity. We actually have a program called the SNAP E&T program, which can assist them in that. Right now, there are no local providers for SNAP E&T. A lot of them are in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, but we will transport them back and forth to that with the taxis, buses, whatever we need to get them there. We will work with them to get that, but that is our brand new. We're kind of struggling through it. What they're going to do is they're going to get limited eligibility. They can receive 3 months worth of benefits in a 36-month period, so we probably won't see the full impact of that till February. But if you're working with clients, let's make them aware now to get them in activities, so come February, they're not at a situation where they don't have any SNAP benefits. This is not me. I am just the messenger on this one. Don't say, well, Cora said. No, Cora didn't say. Cora's just the messenger on this one. So let's work together to figure out how we can get these people to fulfill the requirements so they can keep their benefits. Thank you.
All right, let's give a big round of applause for each of our panelists offering invaluable insight and expertise, and I think we all learned a lot from their presence. Right now, we've been up here for a while. This is a time to kind of take a brief break. I do have some instructions for you. Feel free to use the facilities, visit the refreshment table, and we are going to do now, if you check your tables out, there's going to be a set of questions that are on the table. Pick your top 2 questions that are on the table and find the extrovert at the table that'll be willing to read those questions out loud in front of everyone. I know you walk amongst us. So we'll come back, look at those questions over, identify your top 2, find a speaker, and we'll reconvene and ask the panel the questions that you select. All right, here comes the fun part, everybody. We're going to get interactive. So we talked about the questions that are on the table. Each one of your groups had a chance to look them over, hopefully have a robust discussion about the questions, and decided what 2 are the most important to your table. So at this time, I'm going to walk around and provide one of you the opportunity to ask your question to one of our 7 panelists.
All right. We're going to start over here. This table may be few, but I feel like there's some strong conversation that's going to come out of here.
Okay, this is one of our questions. How do we overcome the not in my backyard perspective about homeless shelters and emergency housing? And I'll be looking for a volunteer from the panel.
Well, I think that question, it's a great question. I think that probably could be addressed by several of the panel members. So if you think you have something, maybe just, if we can hold it to about no longer than 5 minutes.
I'll start first. So that's a very common police call. It's depending on what part of the county that you're at, you will get the call. I recently dealt with one maybe 2 weeks ago. They actually used the word undesirable in my neighborhood. And that's where like a unit like mine comes in where we kind of educate people. We basically tell them it's not illegal to be homeless. A lot of people think that, well, you just can't be sleeping on a public street. And well, then they're loitering. And there's a lot of discretion that we use with the homeless where when they are sleeping in public, if they are like an eyesight, it's a lot of, and I don't want to say turning of the heads, but they aren't blocking anything. They aren't creating any type of disturbance. So that's stuff that we just kind of let be. But one of the things is we just let people know, said, no, they are allowed to walk on your block. They can walk past your house. If a church or if a commercial property or another homeowner says, hey, you can sleep in my backyard or you can sleep just in the wood line, but I own that, they're perfectly legal to do that. And people just either don't know or they just don't think, just like you said, not in my neighborhood, this ain't happening. And that's where the education piece kind of comes in. Now, I wish that I can create a social media post and just kind of put it out there, but there's ways and tactful ways of doing it. And one of the things that we are going to be starting up doing is we're going to be holding large events at the Southern Precinct where we almost have an open forum. We are going to cover a topic, but we also let people ask their questions. And that would be one of the things that kind of gets thrown in there also, where, hey, these are the calls that we're getting, and this is the reason why there's no enforcement. And it's really to get people to understand that, because then the frustration becomes, well, you all are not doing anything. They can just do whatever they want. Like, no, they aren't breaking the law. And there's nothing for us, and there's nothing for us to do.
Anyone else on the panel? I can see Lieutenant Tomlinson is percolating with thought.
I think I would just echo what Sergeant Sanchez was saying. The not in my backyard perspective is kind of like, it's a gross idea that most people want to address homelessness without actually getting involved. And I think that that's an issue. And I think that when we stare at an issue and we're more of a notification than we are part of a solution, I think as a community, and it's not just any of the organizations that are in here or the police departments, I think it's individual community members that just kind of want to be left alone and not even impacted by it. And I think the problem is we have to understand that it is actually here. And the problem is not going anywhere. So just to echo what he's saying, it's not a crime to be homeless. And we have to kind of step out of our comfort zone and help people. And I think that as a police department, at least in Aberdeen, we are making efforts to address that on more of a specific way. We are exploring in very much the infancy phases of adopting a position in the department where we have a contractual person who deals with homeless. So we are trying, but it does start in the community before it gets to us.
Thank you, Lieutenant Tomlinson. Anybody else on the panel there? Great. In order to facilitate this in the best way, those that have been selected from their tables are going to walk up to the center stage here for our TV viewing audience. If the next table who would like to come up and ask a question. I've got a brave volunteer. Okay. You want him at the podium?
All right, those that are asking your questions, you'll make your way up here. We're going to use the podium to facilitate this discussion further. If you wouldn't mind, just state your name and question.
Hi, my name is David Bennett. I'm from Mount Zion. I'm the director of outreach there. My question is, because when you're dealing with homelessness, there's normally truly an intersection of multiple acute kind of things going on. Specifically, I'm also part of an outreach called Hannah's Hope. It's an anti-human trafficking outreach. How do you triage or prioritize in a situation where you're dealing with someone with homelessness that also has physical dependency, mental illness, and specifically considering resource management and allocation as part of this? Kind of how does that prioritization process work? Mainly to the lieutenant and sergeant, but anybody can answer.
All right, sure. So to make sure I understand your question is, how are we triaging the people that we're coming in contact with on the street, whether it's their chemical dependency or their behavioral health issues? what's the priority list of how we're working with
So
them?
yeah, pretty much. So if we come across somebody in trafficking and they also have a physical dependency, if we remove them from the trafficking, we also have the dependency then to deal with. So I have to make sure that there's good liaisoning between multiple different agencies. So when you deal with that, I just wanted to know what was the kind of protocol for that approach.
I think to start, if we find ourselves in an investigation or a call for service where we come across someone who is exhibiting symptoms of addiction and there's evidence to believe that they have been a victim of trafficking or some sort of other victim of a crime, we do have victim advocacy that we go through with the state's attorney's office, and we also have victim advocacy through all of you. There are people that if they're battling addiction, I think I saw someone from Voices of Hope that's in here, that's local, there we are. Aberdeen has always had a pretty good relationship with Voices of Hope when we have people that are battling addiction and trying to make sure that we can connect them. We actually treat them almost the same way as we do with the LEAD program. When we've come across folks that are battling addiction or are exhibiting symptoms of addiction, what we've tried to do is we also know that the police department is not capable to handle every single thing that comes up. But we are pretty good at connecting them with resources who can actually help them. Voices of Hope is the similar situation to that of the LEAD program, that if we have someone in active addiction, instead of just taking them to jail, we have reached out to Rachel Peterson and some of the other directors over there to actually just bring them to Voices of Hope, and they've been more than willing to meet with those folks, to talk with them, and also kind of just put them through the paces of what they need to get them into services. And they've been wonderful for us, at least as far as those actively battling addiction. As far as any sort of other victim advocacy, that would be going through the state's attorney's office, and they've been wonderful in helping us get people connected with different resources.
Thank you very much. All right, great question. Thank you for that. And the next group, just to keep this moving, whoever the next table would like to come up and ask their question. All right, thank you very much. All right. Yep, come on up.
All right. So my name is Linda. I'm the founder and director of HopWorks Global. I do human trafficking prevention. And this is a follow-up question to what Mr. David basically asked, because, yeah, we're talking about homelessness here, but then underlying factors are, it's the homeless population that's the most trafficked population. And literally, I was just sharing with my table, I've been involved in rescues where I cannot get these people into a shelter because they don't fit the homeless category. They don't fit the, addiction category. So yes, we're talking about the liaison with the state attorney's office, but what are some of the most immediate, maybe actions, maybe not immediate, maybe urgent actions that we can take? This is not just a question for you, Thaddeus, but for everybody, whoever can help. We need to figure it out because as it is right now, Maryland is ranked 20th in the country for human trafficking cases. That's crazy. As we speak right now, we are in the middle of rescues, and eventually we have to downplay them for these victims to get the services that they need. So what immediate services, A, from DSS can we get for these trafficked individuals, from the Sheriff's Department? I know we've talked with Sergeant Sanchez here. From housing, from Patrick. What services can we get to help our trafficked population, which is also maybe the homeless population?
So it's funny with that question, I actually was going to mention Linda because she's actually my resource for human trafficking. That's who I use a lot of for any types of presentations or any type of education. This is actually a very difficult question. So if you think about it from a law enforcement side, when we do have these encounters, and kind of going back with the last question. So let's say we get a call, because how we're going to be coming in contact is either if a deputy's stopping or if somebody calls up 911. We end up meeting that person, and so let's say if it is a substance abuse thing, that's where we maybe can go with the medical route. And we don't want to overload the hospitals, but we also don't want the person to OD. And there is a difference of somebody that is overdosing and somebody who's just high. And sometimes the hospital won't even take that person, but then they can become an unsafe person out, out in the public, depending on the substance that they're with. It also goes with emergency petitions is another option that we have, but that's very specific. That's more so if they're going to be a harm to themselves, or a harm to somebody else. With the human trafficking, I'm going to go back with a story. This is several years ago. We had a very proactive deputy make a traffic stop. It's on 95, and he encounters 3 males, 1 female, and stories weren't adding up, but all it was a traffic violation. He believed the person was being trafficked. Like, all the deputies came, they end up separating, and the person was willing to talk. However, we can have all of that gut feeling, but if the person's like, I'm fine, I want to stay with them, and they can act really nervous, we can't just see somebody because we believe. If we can have all of that gut feeling, and I just can't take that person and be like, well, I believe you are in danger right now, and they very may well be, I just can't take them and put them in my police car and drive away, because now I just seize them without having any bit of right. I just violated their Fourth Amendment. So that's on a law enforcement side, which is very frustrating for us and very frustrating to the people that are involved with it. So what this deputy did was, he got really good intel, pictures, tags, and he actually tracked the car. He was able, there were certain things we could do with toll booths, and we knew what direction that they were going to. And it was within about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they ended up actually seizing that female, and they were being trafficked. She was just comfortable in that, and I know when we did a talk with Linda one time, they become comfortable. If you got no place to go and this is who you are dependent on, that's where you're comfortable. That's where you're going to stay. Sometimes it's a language barrier. They don't know where they're at. So it's better to be with somebody here who's, they're taking advantage of me, but they're also feeding me. They're taking, I'm able to go to different places with them. I'm not out on the street. I'm not in the elements. It becomes they become accustomed. I can't think of the term if somebody, when you become accustomed with your kidnapper, help me out here. Stockholm syndrome. Yep. So it becomes very hard when we do deal with that, because we can't force people into a situation. Just like when we do, when we do offer to help to the homeless, sometimes they just say no, and it's extremely frustrating. But that kind of would answer the law enforcement side of it. But that's where we do reach out to these other resources. I'm sure that most of you probably know my name if you've been to any of our big events. I am a resource hound. I try to get as many resources out to our citizens as much as I can. Only because, just like somebody said earlier, it's a circle. The Sheriff's Office can't do it all, Aberdeen PD can't do it all, Voices for Hope can't do it all. It's everybody working together. I hope that answered part of the question. I know that I rambled just a little bit there.
I know you mentioned me, Linda. I can't speak too much on human trafficking. It's not an area I've worked with too closely, but I was wondering, what is the overlap with domestic violence, the system in there? Are there referrals that can go that route?
No.
Okay.
Sometimes the trafficking victims are actually have to go back. Sorry.
Sorry to bring you back up here, Linda.
Sorry, y'all. Exactly right. I'm supposed to be lovely Linda, but right now I'm not. Anyway. So sometimes what we've seen is trafficking is not just sex. There is the aspect of labor trafficking. There is the aspect of, and labor trafficking in this case, we can actually associate it with drug trafficking as well. There's very minimal, remember, trafficking is all about coercion, manipulation, and use of force. So in most cases, traffickers will try to stay away from domestic violence. So they'll try not to go down that route because they lose out on the one source of income, because then if this person reports as a domestic violence case, then there's chances that they'll be removed. There's going to be protective orders and all that. So that intersectionality is
very minimal, I would say, especially within our county. Right now, we're just seeing a lot of, and this is me being boots on the ground, seeing a lot of labor trafficking with the immigration crisis that we had. No politics here, this is human lives. We're seeing a lot of online exploitation, and the increase, somebody talked about the kids, HCPS kids, that has been a prime target as well for online exploitation. And then we also see, well, so many words to say there's very minimal intersectionality between domestic violence and trafficking cases. Yeah.
Thanks, Linda.
All right, does anybody have, on the panel, anybody else want to follow up with that, or are we good? All right, next, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My questions are more pertaining to policy and around prevention, more so. So my first question is for Patrick. Your office oversees the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Has your office taken into consideration of adding chronic homeless to the preference list for Housing Choice Vouchers? Because, of course, the conversation that really happens around that question is homelessness means a variety of different things. I could be on the Housing Choice Voucher list, don't have a nighttime dwelling to call my own, but I'm staying with my mother or family until my name is called, versus a person who's literally going in and out of the Harford Family Shelter, being unsheltered, couch surfing, and I'm listed under the same homeless preference. And in that instance, I would imagine everyone in this room would agree that if there's only one Housing Choice Voucher available, that the person in the latter situation would get the Housing Choice Voucher, but in order to give them that additional preference or that leg up on eligibility, I was trying to see if we can add chronic homelessness to that preference list.
I appreciate the question, Brian. I know with our Housing Choice Voucher Program right now, the staff has kind of undergone a pretty intensive training on setting up the administration plan. So I'm not 100% sure what is coming towards preferences, if there's any changes, but I can certainly put that out there for them to know, because I think we're in that moment where we can really take a good look at it. So no, I appreciate that.
And then I guess I have a sidebar conversation of Housing Choice Voucher. So in that scenario, you have an unsheltered person that's on the wait list, and then you're filtering through the wait list and you're sending out mailers, as I understand, for everyone that's on that wait list. I'm in an unsheltered situation. I don't have a mailing address to call my own. I don't have a social networking system that I can go and rely upon retrieving my mail. How can I adequately get the updates that I need to maintain myself on the Housing Choice Voucher? Because, of course, as we shared, that's the rental subsidy that I need in that housing situation, of course.
For those who don't know, the Housing Choice Voucher wait list over the past year was closed. There was such a massive volume of people on the list that the department decided to close the list, go through what was called a purge, which is essentially just clearing out a lot of the names. So basically, we're trying to get everything on board. So I could tell you that in this instance, any time that they're reaching out, at least for trying to get for the homeless mailing address, there's been an effort to go ahead and get out that recent contact information. Again, I don't know all the details on where they're, how specifically they're asking, but they have recently pushed through to try to find that contact information again.
Okay.
And I was told from our director, and I think this might be a good time to put it out there for everybody, our department asked to just let everybody know, within a couple weeks, the list is going to open. So just keep an eye out. It's going to be open for about a week, but they did ask me to share that with everybody. So, yeah.
So could there be a possible reasonable accommodation based upon certain HUD-based definitions of people who fall onto that list, like a disability? A documented disability should afford a reasonable accommodation for folks on that list, to include a community advocate member or a certified person that could get that email update or that mailer and say, you know what, I'm looking after 10 people that may be on that wait list. I need to make sure that they get this information. And they confirm that, yes, they're still interested and yes, they're still on the list.
And you're talking about in prioritizing as well.
Yeah,
right?
and just providing that reasonable accommodation to maybe not maybe not make it where the mailer is the only source of letting that person know on the wait list. If they meet a certain criteria under the documented disability, perhaps they can be provided a reasonable accommodation to include a community member, an advocate, and or maybe the listed phone number. And we all know that those phone numbers change all too often as well, but at least to give them an olive branch, a secondary line of communication to try to give them that update.
Okay.
Because they are, you know, the most vulnerable community in our county, and I firmly believe that housing choice vouchers should go to that specific community. And everybody knows that. I'm going to advocate for that all day long.
Well, I appreciate you advocating for that too, Brian, so I'm taking notes.
Sorry. And then my next question is for Cora.
If we get limited just to that question.
Oh.
We've got a lot.
Hi. So my question is about the expansion of the shelter. I know we've talked about that for years, and I just didn't know if that was going to be happening anytime soon. I know there's space, but it's being used by library staff.
Yes, it's happening.
Okay. Do we have any kind of timeline?
I don't know if I can share all of the details for it, but we've already gone through the design and the bid process.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yep, it's coming up very soon.
Our first question was already asked, so we got bumped to our second question. So I apologize for this difficult question, Patrick. Is there a plan to support those entities facing budget cuts to help maintain the level of care needed for those we serve as the need grows and funding depletes?
I'd love to give a specific answer on that, but that is something that at least my team and the folks in our office have discussed on some contingency plans, especially when talking about, we have kind of looked at this in the recovery world as well as some of the other areas that could get that funding of, you know, can we use some of the other sources that have come in as contingencies? Yeah, it's not, I would say that we're not having anything that's fully fleshed out for it, but yeah, it's definitely something that we've been thinking about and preliminary setup for it.
Awesome.
So,
Thanks.
Mine's kind of a two-part question, but it goes together. So how can local businesses, faith-based organizations, and residents partner more effectively with those on the panel and the resources in the county to provide sustainable support for our homeless population, especially chronically homeless? And what are some creative communication strategies that we can come up with for social media, newsletters, and the like to connect people to those resources and those programs to all together become more effective?
I'll start. I think just recognizing that homelessness is a housing crisis and understanding that we all need to be behind building more affordable housing in our communities if we're ever going to get to the bottom of this issue. Right now, you know, we had this question about chronic vulnerabilities, but we're seeing a rise in family and non-disabled adult homelessness in our communities. We're seeing a rise in elder adult homelessness because it's primarily an economically driven issue in our society. And if we don't make housing more affordable or look at wages, we'll continue to push people out of the housing market and into homelessness. And so I think recognizing that as we think about new development, as there are opportunities to weigh in on community redevelopment plans and zoning, understanding the vulnerabilities that we share as a community in addressing this issue, as well as the opportunity to address it together.
And you asked about what you can do. And I'll tell you, if you asked any nonprofit, what do you need? They would give you a list longer than your arm. So I would encourage you to reach out to the community members that are doing the work. They need folks like you to not just be on their board, but to be active members of their board, to push their agendas, to have those conversations with their friends, with their neighbors. We need you. Like, you are part of the community, and they're only going to be able to do their work with a strong support system.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Our question arose from something that was mentioned earlier, and it was in regards to the voucher program, but basically the hotel voucher program. What's the status of that program? Is it open? How are those vouchers distributed? If it's not open, is there a different program that places families in the hotels and motels in our area?
Harford County Hope for the Homeless provides motel vouchers to homeless during the emergency winter shelter. So I think that's 16 weeks. And they have a rotating shelter within several different churches throughout the area. But then for families who can't be in those shelters, they do offer hotel vouchers. And all of that is filtered through HCAA.
Hi, my name's Benta Ulig. I'm with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm here in Harford County in Baltimore County. I'm the outreach director. My table was curious about the barriers our county is facing in getting a 24-hour shelter, and I think part of that has been answered a little bit, but if you could expand on that. And also, is there a list or a coalition, I know you had mentioned, of churches that can help support this important work? And it's open to anyone.
Okay. Yes, they did. Patty did just mention the Hope for the Homeless Alliance. I think that's we have a couple folks who are from there today, so if you want to introduce, that'd be great. Make that connection, it's a perfect place to do it. As far as barriers for 24-hour shelter, I mean, a lot of that really has been really working with the right funding source, which is part of when we were asking about the shelter expansion earlier, we were talking at least having more beds. So priority number one, I guess, is we're looking at for having more beds. A lot of it's funding and space as well. So,
Great, thank you.
I think it's really interesting that you asked about the faith community, because that's one of the things that keeps rolling in my head right now about how we can really coordinate the faith community and the work that they're doing. So if you give me a call, there's a program, it's based in Baltimore City, but they're actually running it statewide, that utilizes faith-based organizations to provide services and link up to each other. And also, I just met Mary Ellen Dunn. Is she still here? Oh, there she is in the back. She's working at St. Joan of Arc up in Aberdeen, and she has a coalition of churches that she's working with. So I think that's an awesome place to start, but also give me a buzz and we'll see what we can do.
Will do. Thank you.
Hello. Our question from our table piggybacks off of someone else's question, and it really is related to access to resources. So we were listening to what the sergeant said about it'd be great to know if churches and other organizations had food, shelter, clothing. Could there be a mass resource list put together that is accessible by possibly using a 211 type of service that's already in existence to list all the different things that are available in our county? Possibly a mass messaging could be used much like an Amber Alert, so that people could have this information shared on their cell phones as to where to locate this master list to help them with their area of need. Is something like that been discussed, or could there be possibly a volunteer task force put together to make a database?
So I can't speak for the county as a whole, but I know in the city of Aberdeen, what we do is we have people that work inside our former dispatch office, and they actually have a running list of places. So if anybody's in the eastern side of the county and they find themselves in Aberdeen and they are in need. Inside our station, we actually have pamphlets that we've passed out that give contact information for the various resources that are out there. There is also, and I'm not a county employee to speak to this personally, but there is a large book that the county puts out with resources. Now, whether it's a PDF, I'm not sure. But there's a large book that does address a vast majority. Now, it may not cover every niche area that somebody may need help, but there is a lot of resources listed in there, everything from food, housing, mental health services, and everything like that. It is available. We have it as a copy of a book, and we also have our own pamphlets that we pass out. So it might be, I'm pretty confident the sheriff's office has something very similar where it's a resource pamphlet that they can pass out. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I'm pretty sure you do. We kind of do a lot of the same things.
Yeah, just to clarify on that, that does come out of our Office Housing Community Services Community Resource Guide. It was just updated this past year. So if you look up Harford County Community Resource Guide, it's on harfordcountymd.gov. It does have a very comprehensive list of services, whether that's homeless services, youth services, recovery services, and pretty much all the contact information that goes in there too. I do appreciate the idea of getting messaging out to folks, so just wrote that down. So, yeah.
Thank you. We would really appreciate some consideration for that, because most people do have a cell phone or know someone who can let them use a cell phone. So thank you for your time and your heart today.
Yeah, and I just want to, again, there we go. Okay, 211 is a fabulous resource put out by United Way of Central Maryland, but they are only as good as the information that they're given. So if you are volunteering, working with an organization that's not part of the 211 network, you need to get them on there. It is super simple. If you go onto United Way of Central Maryland website, it's really easy to register your organization and note the services that you provide. So we have How's that? Perfect. Sorry. We had a representative from United Way of Central Maryland at our nonprofit summit. She works down in Baltimore, and she was blown away by the services that are provided up here. And so it is a push for us to make sure that all nonprofits are part of that.
Thank you. And I even think a billboard could be helpful.
I think, is this on? Yeah. Yes. Also, 988 for the suicide prevention hotline. That is a great resource for community resources, but also just a listening ear as well. 988.
988. Thank you. Am I released?
I just wanted to make sure, hi, I'm Alicia Hamilton, Executive Director of Fresh Start Furnishings. I also work on a project called HarfordHelps.com. Harford Helps is a resource directory. Not only can you search the directory by keywords for the types of help people need, but you can also search the directory for places to find to donate or to volunteer. There is about 300 organizations right now in the directory. They're not all human service focused, I will say that. There's a lot of nonprofits in the county that do have other missions and causes they want to support, but you can find a lot of human service resources in there. And there's many churches as well. I know that's been something that's mentioned. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that. It is a small project that is growing. We do need support in terms of getting the word out there that this thing is built, it exists, you can use it now. And we would love to have more churches sign up as well to put in there and select their specific keywords of the services that they offer. So please find me if you have any questions.
Thank you so much.
All right, that concludes round one. We have enough time to add a few more questions. So I have two that are on standby. If anybody else would like to make their way up, we can probably handle another 2 or 3 in addition to what's about to come. So now's your opportunity.
It's me again. Really quickly, there was a reference to a motel voucher program for the wintertime. We touched upon the Hope for the Homeless Alliance, and I want to big up Marty Horst, who is in the building today. Thank you for all that you do. But more importantly, that motel voucher program caps at 5 families. It's very important to kind of get that information out to the masses. It's not going to be an ongoing resource. Once it caps at 5, it caps at 5. I just wanted to address that. But back to homelessness and the root causes of homelessness, prevention, or lack thereof sometimes. Sometimes when there is an eviction notice available, Harford County residents come to HCAA for prevention assistance, and sometimes we have that grant assistance capabilities, but more often than not, the local Department of Social Services has the EAP and the EAFC grants that you mentioned earlier. Have you thought at all about the 2-year eligibility feature that's associated to those grants and how we can advocate to kind of either kind of like minimize it to maybe 1 year or potentially looking into advocacy on those policies if a household member uses utility assistance 1 year, but within that 2 years they need rental assistance, they should still be provided that level of assistance because it's not duplicating services. That in addition to the $500 line of assistance that you provide. And for those who are not familiar, if I owe $1,000, I approach DSS for help, but I lost my job. I don't have the income to pay the balance. We experience a lot of phone calls from families who are not offered that line of assistance because they don't have the means to pay the balance. Is there any type of advocacy in terms of your policy of those grants to kind of look into that and provide a reasonable accommodation?
Is that better? Thank you for the question. As far as the 2-year eligibility, that's actually a state requirement. There's nothing I can specifically do in Harford County, but I can get the word out to put it out there. The $500 eligibility is something we determine, and it's based on the grant we get each year. We get very, very limited funding, especially for EA. Our EA funding normally is gone by this time of year. Luckily this year we did get a little bit of additional funding, and we still are good. We do reevaluate about every quarter to see if we have excess funding. In a couple of years, we have upped it to $750. A couple of years, we've had to lower it to $250. So it is an ongoing, just sliding scale, just depending on where we are and where our funding is.
How can we, as community partners, help you in terms of advocating for more funding?
I guess you could contact your state legislators with that, but as of right now, it's doled out based on what we do each year. The funding is every July we get a different allotment. Luckily, in the past year, we've gotten about 25 to 30% more.
Oh, good.
So we are getting more. We're able to serve more customers, but it just every quarter we look at it and see where we are.
Understood. Thank you, Cora. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Well, I think that's going to wrap up today's event. And I first and foremost want to thank all of you for being here, our panelists, the Bel Air Church of Nazarene, HarfordTV. Thanks for putting this forward. There's a lot of thoughtful discussion today, things that can move forward within, amongst all the partnerships and collaborations here. So thank you very much. I just want to let you know this show will be aired, this program will be aired in early December on HarfordTV. This is going to conclude the program. However, we can stand by afterwards for a little mingling and conversation with everybody that's still in the room. Thanks again.